You slide into the booth, plate in front of you, fork already in hand. Across the table, the other seat sits pulled all the way out, empty, waiting for someone who isn't coming. And for a second, before you can even name why, something in your chest tightens. It isn't hunger. It's older than hunger. That flicker of dread over an empty chair isn't random. In a moment, you'll see exactly what your body is still bracing for, an alarm wired in from the fires your ancestors never ate away from. And by the end, you'll understand something stranger still. Why eating alone isn't the neutral, modern convenience it gets sold as, but a genuine break from almost everything your species has ever known. And what that quiet unease might actually be asking you to rebuild. To see why, you have to go back further than any diner booth, back to the very first fires your ancestors ever gathered around. 50,000 years ago, nobody carried their portion off to eat it in a corner. Archaeologists digging up ancient hearths keep finding the same pattern, a circle. Bones, ash, and food scraps clustered tight around one fire, not scattered into private nooks. That circle wasn't decoration, it was the architecture of survival. Everyone who ate in sight of everyone else, because a fire that fed one person quietly while others went hungry was a fire that wouldn't exist for long. Sharing wasn't kindness, it was infrastructure. So when you sit down alone tonight and feel that flicker of unease, that's not weakness. It's an alarm built by evolution. For most of human history, distance from the group during a meal meant one of two things: danger or disgrace. A body eating apart from its people was a body that had wandered from protection or been pushed out of it. Your nervous system still runs that old software. It doesn't know your solo dinner is just a busy Tuesday. It reads the empty chair across from you the way it once read a predator's silence. The anthropologist Dunbar has spent years studying exactly this. The practice researchers call commensality, the simple act of eating with others. His research and work by others in the field keeps landing on a similar pattern. People who regularly share meals tend to report more trust and more closeness with the people they eat with compared to those who mostly eat alone. Not because the food changes, because the presence does. Dunbar's work suggests the dinner table was never really about nutrition. It was one of your ancestors' oldest tools for keeping a group emotionally intact. Here's where it gets stranger. Among many hunter-gatherer societies studied by anthropologists, eating alone wasn't just unusual, it was often against the rules. Meat especially came with strict sharing protocols. A hunter who returned with food didn't get to decide who ate. The group decided. Hoarding a kill or quietly eating it apart from others could mark you as untrustworthy, even dangerous to keep around. Your ancestors didn't invent politeness about sharing food. They invented survival about it. Now think about fire itself. The primatologist Richard Wrangham argued that cooking changed everything about human biology. Smaller guts, bigger brains, more energy available for thought. But cooking also demanded time. Fire had to be tended. Food had to be watched. And waiting around a flame, for however long it took, meant waiting around each other. The meal became communal almost by accident of physics. You couldn't cook alone and eat alone the way you can now, alone in a kitchen with a microwave timer counting down. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last meal that felt like it mattered? Not because of what was on the plate, but who was across from you. Most people, when they think back, land on a memory of faces, not flavors. Here's the twist. Some researchers studying commensality argue this preference runs so deep that eating in isolation shows up as a stronger predictor of felt loneliness than simply living alone does. The plate was never really the point. The company sitting across from it was. Because here's the turn most people miss. Solo dining isn't some new, neutral lifestyle choice quietly filling up restaurant seats and grocery aisles. It's a genuine rupture. the first time in the species' entire history that eating apart has become common, comfortable, and even marketed as self-care. For nearly all of human existence, a solitary meal was the exception that needed explaining. Now it's the default that needs justifying. And your body hasn't caught up. That flatness you sometimes feel after eating alone, the sense that the meal didn't quite land even though you were fed. Anthropologists who study commensality would tell you that's not sadness about food. It's an ancient hunger for witness. Your ancestors' nervous systems evolved expecting a face across the fire. Yours still does, whether or not you've named the feeling. This isn't an argument that time-poor schedules are a myth. They're real, and they're only getting tighter. But the busyness explanation quietly erases something older and more honest. That solo eating was never a real option before, so nobody had to build the emotional tools to make it feel normal. You're not failing at managing your calendar. You're improvising a response to a situation your species has almost no ancient blueprint for. So the next time you eat alone and it feels strange, you can stop treating that as a personal glitch. It's a signal passed down through every hearth your ancestors ever sat around, still firing exactly as designed. The question worth carrying with you isn't how to eliminate that feeling. It's what it might be quietly asking you to rebuild. Who's the last person you'd actually want back at that fire? Drop that name in the comments. It might tell you more about what you're missing than the empty plate ever could.